For decades, American audiences have been told a familiar story about air power. Only the largest, wealthiest nations can build fighter jets that truly dominate the skies. The United States, with its unmatched aerospace industry, has long set the global standard. Russia and China spent enormous sums trying to keep up, each pouring billions into stealth programs and next-generation platforms. Yet, in recent years, a surprising new player has disrupted that old framework, not by challenging America directly, but by reshaping the strategic landscape around America's closest partners. Sweden's Gripen, particularly its most advanced E and F variants, has become the most unexpected wildcard in modern air power. And whether Washington likes it or not, this shift is now influencing Canada, a nation long tied to the United States through NORAD, NATO, and shared continental defense. Before diving into the geopolitical consequences, especially Canada's quiet drift away from traditional U.S. procurement, we must understand why Gripen has captured global attention. The story begins in July 2025, during a border confrontation between Thailand and Cambodia. It was the first real-world test of the JAS-39 Gripen in combat, and the results were widely described as very good by military assessments. Thailand deployed its Gripens alongside F-16s to conduct precision strikes against Cambodian artillery positions. The aircraft proved it could deliver accurate, decisive firepower under hostile conditions, an achievement that immediately led Thailand to order additional Gripen EF aircraft. That moment did not merely validate Sweden's design philosophy, it signaled to the world that a smaller nation could produce a jet capable of real battlefield impact without the massive expense associated with fifth-generation fighters. This matters deeply to Canadian defense planners. While the United States continues to promote the F-35 as the backbone of North American air defense, the cost realities are impossible to ignore. Gripen's unit cost sits around $85 million, while F-35 contracts range from $77.9 million to well over $112 million depending on configuration. But the enormous difference appears in operational cost. The F-35 requires around $300 per hour to fly, compared to just $8,000 for Gripen. Over the lifespan of a national fleet, that gap can reach billions, money that smaller or fiscally cautious nations simply cannot dismiss. For Canada, already facing strained budgets and procurement delays, the economic contrast becomes more than a financial debate. It becomes a conversation about independence, sustainability, and strategic control. Gripen's appeal is not just affordability. Sweden designed the aircraft for versatility, survivability, and rapid deployment, qualities that resonate strongly with countries operating in vast, remote, or harsh environments. The jet can take off from 500-meter highway strips, be refueled and rearmed in 10 minutes, and operate with minimal ground crew. Its combat radius reaches 1,500 kilometers, and it carries 7 Meteor missiles for beyond visual range engagements, plus 2 Iris-T short-range missiles. These aren't theoretical capabilities. They reflect Sweden's long tradition of building systems for wartime resilience. Equally critical is Gripen's technological edge. The aircraft's gallium nitride-based electronic warfare suite has demonstrated remarkable performance, including a well-known training scenario in which a Gripen appeared on the left wing of a Eurofighter Typhoon without being detected. In May 2025, the Gripen E became the first fighter jet to be piloted by artificial intelligence through the Centaur system, completing 3 sorties involving target tracking and beyond visual range engagements. For middle-power nations, This combination of low cost and high sophistication presents a rare opportunity: access to cutting-edge capability without dependence on U.S. technology transfers or permissions. And here is where American viewers should pay attention. Canada, America's closest defense partner, has been quietly re-evaluating its position. While Ottawa has publicly committed to the F-35, internal debates continue, fueled by concerns over long-term cost, operational flexibility, and reliance on U.S. systems. Gripen's independence from American control, especially its sovereign mission data access, appeals deeply to Canadian policymakers who increasingly seek autonomy in Arctic operations. From a U.S. perspective, this trend is troubling. The entire northern defense perimeter relies on tight coordination, shared infrastructure, and mutually aligned procurement. If Canada begins drifting toward European systems, Washington could face reduced influence over continental defense, something few Americans have considered, but all should be thinking about. So the question becomes, what happens when a cost-effective, combat-proven, technologically advanced fighter begins pulling U.S. allies toward alternative defense paths? What does it mean for America when Canada, a cornerstone of NORAD, shows interest in systems designed outside the U.S. sphere? And should Washington respond more proactively to keep the partnership aligned? These are not abstract geopolitical questions. They are immediate strategic realities. The United States has always been strongest when its alliances are unified, when its partners operate platforms that integrate seamlessly with American command and control networks, and when continental defense remains tightly coordinated. The slow but noticeable Canadian interest in exploring alternatives to U.S. fighters represents more than a procurement curiosity. It signals a subtle shift in how Canada perceives its long-term defense autonomy. For a country sharing the world's longest undefended border with the United States, any move toward strategic independence has direct consequences for American security planning. Yet this also presents an opportunity. Gripen's rise forces U.S. policymakers to reassess how they engage with allies. Does Washington rely too heavily on the prestige of American technology without addressing cost realities? Should the U.S. adapt its export approach to accommodate nations seeking more affordable or more flexible systems? Or is Canada's drift a warning that America must renew its diplomatic and industrial outreach? American viewers, particularly those who care about national defense, must consider how these developments shape the future of the continent. Should Canada be encouraged to diversify its capabilities? Or is it essential for the United States to maintain a unified defense architecture through NORAD? Gripen's impact worldwide is undeniable, but its growing influence in North America raises challenging questions. Where should America stand as its closest neighbor explores new options? And what choices will strengthen or weaken the strategic bond that has protected both nations for generations? These discussions matter now more than ever, as global threats grow increasingly complex and unpredictable today. As the global defense community evaluates Sweden's unexpected rise in the fighter jet arena, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Gripen's influence does not simply reshape the strategies of small countries. It directly challenges long-standing assumptions within North America itself. For the United States, a nation that has traditionally been the primary supplier of high-end combat aircraft to its allies, Sweden's success introduces a new competitive dynamic, especially as Canada weighs its future defense identity. While the U.S. remains the world's aerospace leader by every measurable standard, America must now confront a question it has rarely needed to ask. What happens when a close ally begins drifting toward a model of autonomy that does not rely on American platforms? To understand the stakes, it is useful to examine why Gripen's design philosophy resonates so strongly with Canadian defense planners. Canada operates across vast Arctic terrain, much of it remote, inaccessible, and exposed to extreme cold. Gripen's ability to function from 500-meter highway strips, its 10-minute turnaround times, and its minimal maintenance requirements align remarkably well with Canada's dispersed geography. The jet was built for environments where hardened air bases are targets, and resilience is essential. Sweden's doctrine, shaped by decades of planning for large-scale attacks against critical infrastructure, mirrors the challenges Canada faces in protecting thousands of miles of northern frontier. For Ottawa, adopting a fighter built specifically for austere conditions offers a form of strategic reassurance that does not rely solely on American systems or personnel. Yet the deeper issue extends beyond operational fit. Gripen's independence from U.S. mission data control appeals to Canadian policymakers who increasingly seek sovereign command over their own aircraft. This matters particularly in the Arctic, where Canada asserts territorial claims that Washington does not fully recognize. The United States views much of the Northwest Passage as an international strait, while Canada insists it is sovereign internal water. If Canadian jets require U.S. authorization or coding support for certain operations, Ottawa risks losing operational autonomy during moments of national priority. Gripen, with its open architecture and unrestricted access to mission data files, eliminates that vulnerability. From the American perspective, this shift is concerning. NORAD, the Joint U.S.-Canadian Air Defense Command, operates on unity of doctrine and shared technology. A Canadian fleet partially or fully independent of U.S. support challenges that unity. This is where American viewers aged 40 to 65, many of whom lived through the Cold War and understand the value of alliance cohesion, should pay close attention. Gripen is not simply a new jet. It represents a new defense philosophy. It enables countries to achieve high capability without high dependence. Canada exploring this possibility is not an act of hostility toward the United States, but it does reflect a desire for greater strategic flexibility. And in a world where geopolitical tensions shift rapidly, flexibility can reshape entire alliances. Washington cannot ignore these signals. If Canada pursues greater autonomy, the United States must adapt accordingly or risk losing influence over the continent's northern defense posture. What complicates matters further is Gripen's real-world success. The July 2025 operations in Thailand were more than a battlefield test. They were proof that affordable, non-stealth fighters could deliver reliable, high-precision performance under combat pressure. For Canada, watching a nation like Thailand validate a platform outside the American ecosystems reinforces the idea that alternatives can compete effectively. The fact that Thailand immediately ordered more Gripen EF aircraft following the engagement demonstrates the aircraft's credibility. For Ottawa, this creates a strong argument. If a cost-effective jet can deliver decisive results in conflict zones, it may also offer dependable protection across Canada's vast territories. Technological innovation adds another layer of appeal. The May 2025 AI-piloted sorties under the Centaur system signal that Gripen is not merely catching up with American aircraft. It is pushing boundaries in different directions. While the U.S. leads in stealth and sensor fusion through platforms like the F-35, Sweden is forging a path emphasizing electronic dominance, modular upgrades, and rapid adaptability. Its gallium nitride electronic warfare suite, capable of jamming radar systems and confusing missile guidance, gives smaller nations a powerful tool against technologically superior adversaries. This path diverges from traditional stealth-first strategies, but offers nations a high level of survivability without enormous costs. This strategic divergence forms the basis of Canada's dilemma. Aligning with U.S. platforms offers seamless integration with American systems, extensive logistics support, and the prestige of flying the world's most advanced stealth jet. Choosing Gripen offers affordability, independence, and the ability to tailor the aircraft to Canadian needs without external restrictions. Both paths have merit, but they reflect different philosophies about autonomy and alliance structure. For American audiences, this raises a serious question. Should Canada's growing interest in independence be viewed as a natural evolution, or a warning sign that the U.S. must re-engage more aggressively to maintain continental unity? Public sentiment in Canada is shifting. Many Canadians view the F-35's cost and long-term maintenance requirements as burdensome. They also worry about dependence on U.S. supply chains during crises. Meanwhile, Gripen's reputation has grown through transparency, predictable costs, and performance demonstrated in exercises and combat. For Canadian taxpayers, this combination is increasingly appealing. But for American strategists, it presents a risk. If Canada gradually restructures its air power along non-U.S. lines, NORAD could face compatibility issues that weaken the very shield protecting North America. Rather than viewing this as a threat, however, the United States might see it as a moment to strengthen its partnership with Canada. Gripen's global rise highlights the need for Washington to better understand its allies' economic and operational priorities. No matter how capable the F-35 is, and it remains unmatched in stealth and sensor fusion, its long-term operational cost is a real concern. If the U.S. wants to maintain its leadership role, it must consider how to make its platforms more accessible, more flexible, and more responsive to allies' needs. The U.S. also has an opportunity to reaffirm its shared Arctic mission with Canada, emphasizing cooperation rather than dependence. Ultimately, the future of North American defense hinges on how well the U.S. recognizes these evolving dynamics. Canada's curiosity about Gripen is not simply about choosing a jet. It is about defining its strategic identity for the next half-century. Will it stay tightly aligned with American systems, or will it carve out a more independent path? American viewers must ask themselves a vital question. Should the United States take Canada's shift as a wake-up call, encouraging renewed commitment to partnership? Or does this trend reflect a deeper transformation that Washington must address with fresh strategy and open dialogue? As Canada weighs its future in air power, the broader implications stretch far beyond procurement. A shift toward a platform like the Gripen EIF would not simply introduce a new fighter into Canadian service. It would signal a deeper redefinition of how Canada positions itself within the U.S.-led defense ecosystem. For decades, American leadership in aerospace has allowed Washington to shape the doctrine, readiness, and strategic behavior of its closest allies. If Canada begins to move toward greater independence, the United States must consider what that means for continental defense and long-term stability. Gripen's success illustrates a global trend. Smart engineering and cost-effective innovation can challenge even the most established players. With its $85 million price tag, $8,000 flight-hour cost, advanced electronic warfare suite, 7 Meteor missiles, 1,500-kilometer combat radius, and demonstrated combat performance during Thailand's July 2025 operations. Gripen has proven that modern air power is no longer confined to the world's biggest spenders. That message resonates strongly with mid-sized nations balancing capability and sovereignty. For Canada, a nation with increasing interest in defining its own Arctic strategy, this represents an opportunity that simply did not exist 20 years ago. But for American audiences, especially viewers who understand the long history of NORAD cooperation, the rise of such alternatives raises important questions. The F-35 remains unmatched in stealth, sensor fusion, and integration with U.S. systems. However, the long-term cost and dependency structures tied to U.S. platforms create tension for allies seeking independence. Canada's curiosity toward Gripen should be understood not as a rejection of the United States, but as an attempt to navigate a world where flexibility, autonomy, and cost efficiency matter more than ever. Still, Washington cannot ignore how this shift might affect America's strategic posture. If Canada adopts a more independent defense identity, the U.S. could face reduced influence in the Arctic, complications in data sharing, and challenges in maintaining a unified continental shield. For that reason, the United States must decide how to engage. Does it reinforce its partnership with Canada through deeper cooperation? Or does it update its export and support models to better reflect allies' needs? Ultimately, America's strength has always come from its alliances. Canada's debate over Gripen versus U.S. fighters is not merely a procurement choice. It is a signal that allies now expect options, flexibility, and transparency. The U.S. can respond by recognizing this shift and reaffirming a partnership built on mutual respect rather than dependency. For American viewers, the message is clear. Canada's evolving defense posture matters. It affects the future of North American security, Arctic dominance, and the balance of power across the hemisphere. So the real question becomes, should the United States adapt quickly to ensure unity with its closest neighbor, or risk watching Canada drift toward a more independent path? Your thoughts matter. How should America respond? If you've enjoyed this deep dive into North American air power and the shifting dynamics between the United States and Canada, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps us bring more high-quality content, detailed analysis, and global defense insights directly to you. Every like, every comment, and every subscription strengthens our community and keeps these conversations alive. Now we want to hear from you. This topic affects the future of continental security, the stability of NORAD, and America's role in shaping modern air strategy. Do you think Canada should stay tightly aligned with U.S. defense systems or pursue a more independent path? How should Washington respond if Canada continues leaning toward European alternatives like the Gripen? And do you believe America needs to rethink its approach to allied procurement and long-term security cooperation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters more than ever. Thank you so much for watching. May you and your family stay safe, healthy, and blessed. God bless you all, and we'll see you in the next video.